Let's get into this. Okay, so the themes involve reflecting on spirituality, religion, beliefs, art, love, companionship, selflessness, self-sacrifice, boundaries, music, sobriety, escapism, the things that we do to escape our responsibilities or duties, or to avoid any of the aforementioned topics: love, art, religion, spirituality, the things that we do to avoid companionship or love or connecting with other people. Yeah, it's bringing up a lot of stuff. It can bring up a lot of dark things, especially if you've been running from things or avoiding certain things within the self, within the psyche, within the mind. Especially people having a hard time coping and having psychotic breaks or mental breakdowns is not going to be far-fetched, you know what I mean? But the thing is, the things that we fear and the things that we believe, and a lot of those things will be challenged and will be presented with opportunity to confront those things. And it's necessary to have some bravery, because with everything coming up to the surface, it's going to feel like you're being taunted, and it can be overwhelming. So the message for me to anybody who is trying to figure out how to approach fear is always to educate yourself about the thing that you find yourself avoiding. Learn as much as you possibly can about it, because the more you know about it, the more you feel prepared to face it, and the less scary the thing tends to become. Change surrounding evolution, evolving traditions, when to move past certain traditions, knowing when certain traditions are played out, old, just rigid, or need to be rethought, knowing when to break the rules, when the rules are unjust, noticing the patterns of those that have come before us, and making objective observations and adjustments based on our individual needs and desires, and not being afraid to do so, because fear is a big part of why we tend to be rigid and facing things that allow us to be childlike and playful and fun and just exist and be. Because Saturn is very strict and rigid and worried about the rules and worried about time and worried about all these things, worried about the future. It's very hard for a Saturn individual to just be in the moment. But a lot of us have restricting beliefs that we've had because of society. Last time Saturn was in Pisces at 19 degrees, March 66? So it wasn't a good time for the Saturn ruled people, you know what I mean? For the brown folks. So think about all the things that we've been taught to believe since then. Changing the mind, changing the way of thinking, seeing, hearing, learning, and experience things that help one to understand why it's worth the labor of unlearning and learning something new. Learning to break traditions, learning when traditions are keeping you from having the life that you really want. You can idealize certain values, but those values might just be something that have been uploaded into you rather than chosen by you. So really reflecting on beliefs and the way your mind works, because what you believe really shapes the choices and the decisions that you make. So once you allow yourself to shape your beliefs differently, you can shape your choices in your life differently. Changing the way of communication as well. That's a byproduct of that. Expressing one's ideas change. Ideas and thoughts and perspectives, opinions that change, and the way the mind works, perceives, and processes stimuli or information that can also undergo a change. There could be certain experiences that you go through that causes you to see the world differently. All of a sudden you're forced to have some type of experience where now you're married to somebody black, and now all of a sudden you get the microaggressions because you see it all the fucking time. You know what I mean? It's somebody that you care about, and it becomes more personal. And now all of a sudden those experiences shape the way you see the world and the way you experience the world, the way you think about the world, the choices that you make. That's what we're in right now. And Saturn retrograde is bringing all of this to surface, because we've been having these experiences, right? We've been going through it and in the thick of it and not really having time to process what the fuck we've been going through. So Saturn retrograde is going to allow us time to really process all of the sentient things that we've been feeling, noticing, that we can't really put words to. That is the time to really sit with it and let it all come up, review it. Don't allow yourself to get worked up or overwhelmed by especially things that provoke fear, because it's coming up so you can have a better view of it, and it's also coming up to be cleared out. So thinking things through more thoroughly, thinking about the future and in a perspective of preparing for the future and wanting to do things that set your future self up for success, rather than holding yourself back out of fear for something that could possibly come in the future, because that's what fear is. You're putting energy into something that you think could be a negative possibility. And if you make preparations for something that you fear, you can absolutely manifest. Like, all manifestation tells you is to prepare your life and to prepare your space for whatever it is that you're asking for. So if you do that from a fear mindset, why wouldn't you manifest the very thing that you're preparing for and making space for? You know? Thinking about the future, yes. Thinking about the past and reviewing past lessons. Again, thinking about past choices, decisions. Why did I make that choice? What led me to make that choice? What led me to make the decision? Is it because somebody else influenced me and made me feel like, made me believe something about myself or my future or about my possibilities or whatever it is, it's going to be different for everybody else, especially depending on where Saturn is, how Saturn is in your chart based on where you have Pisces. Thinking about the past and reviewing past lessons. Establishing new boundaries based on repeated patterns for the sake of establishing new patterns that yield better results for the future. So a lot of us are thinking about, like, now, again, those of us in the collective, because there are many people who are in denial, who refuse to hold themselves accountable and to be honest with themselves about how their choices influence or impact the people around them, whether it's negative or positive, or whether they're even happy with it. Because if you intended to have a negative impact and you have a negative impact, I imagine you would be happy with that. You know what I mean? But it's all about how honest you're being with yourself, your own personal relationship with integrity. So a lot of us are thinking of ways to be more resourceful, save time, and operate with more integrity. But a lot of people who resist that because of fear. If you lean into fear, that will be expanded upon. Like, is this a square? It's a whole sign square between Saturn and Jupiter. So that can really be exacerbated. Is Uranus here? Yeah. I mean, and this is a positive aspect, but if you're working, this is energy. This is energy. So if you think of positive being like plus, adding to something, right? If you're working with fear and you're operating with fear and you're using fear in your everyday works and your choice of manifestation, whether it's conscious or unconscious, like whatever it is, if you are operating from a place of fear, the universe will help you. But also, if you're working to set better boundaries so that you can have more prosperity and have more expansion and have more joy and have more, Jupiter wants to have fun. Jupiter wants to expand. Jupiter wants to grow. You can have more of that too. There are going to be some challenges because Saturn, again, it's time. There has been an accumulation of these beliefs and choices, and there's a lot of undoing that has to be done. It's usually going to take a long time to undo, like to take a Saturn journey, but it's always worth it. It's usually lasting. So again, people are thinking about ways to operate with more integrity, thinking about death and finality, endings and new beginnings, reflecting on previous endings or important life events and turning points in one's life, reflecting on the company and companionship in your life. Who's around you? Are you influenced by people who are good for you, who you want to be like? Like, is it cool? Like, nobody's rubbed you the wrong way. You don't have no bad blood with nobody, but like, it's just the same old, same old. We're not growing. We're not doing anything. We're not expanding. We're not, nothing is expanding in the relationship. There can be relationships that are based in complacency, and that can be fear-based. So that can be something that the collective is experiencing, especially because the North Node is still in Aries. So the South Node in Libra is like, companionship is great, but having companionship for the sake of companionship, if it's not coming from a place of your first individual needs, if it's not meeting your individual needs and your individual desires and the things that you want. Also, the North Node is in the bound of Venus. So it's like, yeah, I want love and companionship, but what do I want first and foremost? Are these people serving or assisting me in getting that? Or are they just kind of are we all just keeping each other complacent and comfortable, not challenging each other to really face those obstacles that are going to allow us to get to our greatest and best individual selves? Taking your time and slowing down, moving more intentionally is also a theme, preparing for any obstacles that may come. There's always going to be obstacles in life. If you sit around with people who are cool and comfortable, who just validate the person that you are right now and not the person that you're trying to be, that could be cool and fun and all, but you're just sitting around avoiding obstacles. But if you surround yourself with people who are also facing those obstacles, you can have community and companionship with people who are also striving for their own individual goals. I don't want to say this is superficial. The South Node is in the bound of Mercury. It's like you just talk to people just to talk and share your ideas and thoughts with people, but that's really divine and that's really precious and special. So if you're not operating in a frequency that is like me first, that's what the universe is trying to get you to do, trying to get you to set better boundaries for you first and foremost. But if you're prioritizing other people first, things are not going to work out well. If you're worried about how are other people going to receive me or how are other people going to react or respond to my choices, you really shouldn't give a fuck. If you're going to be happy, that's all that matters. Saturn and all the other luminaries are going to give you exactly what you need to keep going. This is about the relationship between you and yourself. So again, taking your time and slowing down, moving more intentionally, and preparing for any obstacles that may come. Also taking time to connect to your own higher self, to your soul, to your sense of being, whatever your spiritual beliefs are, connecting to that, connecting to the divine through yourself. And really getting to know yourself, unpacking trauma and mental health, disabilities or disorders, learning of or studying one's history of mental health. You could be learning about somebody in your family having a mental health diagnosis or struggling with mental health, even depression or anxiety or things like that. You could just be learning that you're not the only person in your family who has experienced that. There could be a pattern of coping a certain type of way, or drinking problems or something, like just coping mechanisms, and you're unpacking how you picked up certain coping mechanisms, unpacking the lies that we've been told and the lies that we tell ourselves to appease ourselves. That's a really nuanced one, because nobody really knows what goes on in your mind except you. And if you continue to lie to yourself, that type of fragmentation can be really dangerous if it's overdone. You can have some really severe splitting in the mind that can cause some really, unpleasant reactions within the body, within the nervous system. Some people will be experiencing that, but I think a lot of us will have like this inner knowing of trying to avoid that and really take the time to confront these things and really, be patient with ourselves while we unpack all of this stuff. Also unpacking idealism and the things that we believe without any real evidence. The things that we've been told and we just took at face value and we took it and ran with it, and because everybody around us believed it, we were like, okay, cool, it must be true. Like it's really just like a lie agreed upon, and there's evidence to prove otherwise, but it's like, oh, we all still choosing to believe that it's not, that evidence doesn't matter, right? Okay, cool. But a lot of people are going to be unpacking and being like, hold up, wait a minute, no, this isn't right. I've been gaslighting people, actually. You know what I mean? We're going to realize how certain beliefs can cause us to, like, if you've been manipulated to believe something, you then become a vessel of manipulation and lies. You know what I mean? And a lot of us will be coming to terms with how we've been used and how we can be a vessel of lies, because we've been taught and believed lies since the beginning of time. A lot of my following wasn't even born in '66, so we didn't even have a say in what went on, but it has affected us. It's affected our parents, it's affected our grandparents, and now we're having to unpack several things that we've been taught to believe that we now know have just been tools and weapons to use against us. Taking in information more objectively and learning how to process triggers and being invited to do shadow work. So like really taking in information and instead of thinking about how it applies to you as an individual, trying to process and empathize with how it may apply to other individuals. Learning how to process triggers like responsible ways that aren't reactive and harmful and that don't involve projection or continuing the pattern of abuse. Like learning healthy ways to cope, like journaling, getting therapy, talking to people, like really connecting in healthy ways with those triggers and learning some healthy coping mechanisms. And also, just like I said, being invited to do shadow work. This could be through books. This could be, again, through journaling, spiritual advisors, therapy, different levels, because there's different levels of things that people have to unpack. So really getting the tools that you need, seeking the tools and getting those tools that you need and doing the work. Saturn is all about hard work. So a lot of people will be called to do the work, and many will and many won't. So y'all have free will. It's going to take time, so I'm sure we'll take our breaks and things like that, but we'll get through it. Also, being shown where we need to slow down or take a step back or make arrangements ahead of time. Learning where we personally need more time to process, to cope, to prepare, to recuperate. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is that we personally, everybody has Saturn somewhere in their chart. Wherever Saturn is, it's like, hold up, this is where I need more time. Me is conjunct my chart ruler. So it's just me, my body. You're going to have to give me several minutes. But it's different for everybody. It could be in your third house. So like when people want to talk about something, it could take you a minute to like really get your ideas together, to really connect with your emotions and put words to how you feel and express that to other people. Or if it's in your sixth house, just in your day-to-day life, you can just need time to like prepare from one task to the next. Or if it's in your seventh house, like it can relate to your spouse and your relationships and the people around you. When you deal with other people, you just need more time. Like it can be draining. Like it's gonna vary depending on where it is in your house and the relationship it's having with the other planets in your chart. Also later in this, I'm gonna have some examples that are not great, so just you've been warned. Saturn represents boundaries and barriers. It also represents like the limits. It's the last planet before we get to the outer planets. It can also represent what we feel responsible for and subconscious fears that we have disguised or perceived as moral obligations. The boundaries we allow to exist that block us from our desires, ideals, and dreams. Pisces represents those dreams, hopes, wishes, and desires. And this retrograde is inviting us to take a deeper look at what is keeping us from having, manifesting, and achieving our greatest hopes and desires. Like the things you used to dream about when you were a little kid, like before your parents projected on you or like, no, you can't have that because we believe XYZ. And it's like, I don't even know enough to know if I believe that, but you're making me believe it, so I guess I believe it. A lot of us, took it, we ran with it, and we stuck with it, and a lot of us really believe that we believe it. The mind is a tricky thing. Some of us know that we don't believe it, we never did believe it. We pretended to believe it for a little while, or we tried to believe it for a little while, but now we know we can't. And some of us had to get away from the people who taught us to believe those things to establish our own beliefs through our own experiences. So this retrograde is helping us to see clearly the things, circumstances, people, patterns, quote unquote responsibilities, etc. that stand between us and the life we want for ourselves. We are also invited to think more practically about what it is that we want, have our desires tempered, realizing the difference between what we truly want and what we thought we wanted. Differentiating the longevity of our desires, how much of that desire exists for the pleasure of the self or others. Understanding how to do what's best for oneself is what we are being called in to achieve. So that's basically what I just said earlier. Like, are you doing it for you, or are you doing it so that others respond well to you? Because you don't want to smoke with nobody. You don't want to deal with anybody's unpleasant response or reaction to what it is that you really, really want to do. So we're being called in to really get clear on that and think about, what do I want in the long run? What do I want when it's all said and done? Like, think about your bucket list, your life bucket list, what it is that you want to achieve or accomplish for yourself. It's an assessment of which boundaries serve a purpose of protecting one's path or protecting one's ego, which are beneficial and which are costing you precious energetic inventory. Which boundaries exist out of fear or resistance to embracing one's true desires, and which serves as tools to keep out distractions, threats, or enemies. It's like, which are really like responsible boundaries that were placed out of a space of integrity, like, no, I need to get this done. I can't listen to you when you say, do you want to come drink and escape from all my problems and responsibilities and resist the fear, to like really face myself and really struggle with this new journey that I want to take to get better. Because over time you will get better. That's the Saturn journey. You can become the master. It just takes time and it's hard work. So it does require certain boundaries. So yeah, we're really unpacking all of that. So an example is like, again, these are the bad examples I was telling you about. Do you avoid going out because crowds give you anxiety? Or do you avoid going out because you're being called to face your fears and you simply don't want to? Are you being called to get used to crowds because you have a gift of speaking, or you have a gift of commanding large audiences or performing or something like that? What is it really? Because only you know. And you can hyper-moralize it all you want. You can make it extremely religious, and you can do all of those things, and you can tell yourself whatever you want to tell yourself to make yourself believe, but it's like you won't believe it because deep down you know. Like, you always know when you're lying to yourself. Or do you avoid sharing yourself with people because you're protecting yourself from unnecessary judgment and ridicule? Or do you avoid sharing yourself with people because you fear being perceived in a way that you don't have control over? Let's be real. Like, do you need to just express yourself and just get over the fuck how people gonna receive you? Because that's probably what it is. You probably have something that you need to share and you've been holding back because in the past it hasn't been received well. And something about working at it over time is gonna help you train the ability to withstand unnecessary resistance, but also learning to understand yourself, because a lot of the times you would just have energy that people like to project on. A lot of the time you just look like something that somebody wishes they could be, and instead of them doing the work, they are projecting on you. Do you hide behind the restriction of dogmatic practices that encourage soul fragmentation to make you feel morally superior because you are truly afraid to face your darkest parts and don't have the courage to face them, learn to understand and accept and love them? And do you tell yourself that if you just avoid it and ignore it, that is love? Saturn can represent traps of complacency, resistance, and restrictions that we tell ourselves and allow ourselves to believe are boundaries for protection, when really we just want to rationalize our cowardice. Are you just really scared and you're soothing yourself with something that makes you feel morally superior, or you feel like you're being more responsible, or you're doing something better? Where have you been holding back? And who might be holding you back from receiving more of the things that bring your soul joy, love, peace, happiness, openness, and fearlessness? What patterns exist to keep you still or stuck? Where is there stagnation? Where is there complacency? What people or things enable your fears and restrictions unnecessarily? What's keeping you from happiness that you rationalize or justify with moral superiority? What do you tell yourself you are better than others for abstaining from? I don't do XYZ, so I'm better than whoever. Where do those beliefs come from? We can all tend to have, I think a lot of us will hope that we check those intrusive thoughts, because a lot of them are just intrusive thoughts. But how many of us feed those thoughts? You know what I mean? Where does that come from, though? Where do those internal restrictions that you're projecting onto others and saying it's them and not you? So all of this is something that's worth us reviewing and taking a look at. Even if we've been unpacking it, the bag could be deep. So it's like you keep unpacking, keep unpacking. You might find something else. What environments have you wanted to explore but tradition has forbid? Be honest with yourself. This is personal and can remain private. This is all worth journaling as well. Sexuality is a big one, because sexual fluidity is something that is it allows you to operate on a higher frequency of love. It allows you to operate on a frequency of more acceptance. And to avoid it because of tradition or indoctrination is a perfect example of how you can deny yourself something that can ultimately bring you more prosperity because of tradition. It's an unnecessary boundary, and it serves others and not you. For many people, it's things like sexuality, but for many of us, it involves unpacking our traditions with relationships with religion, love, sexuality, spirituality, community, art, and creativity, emotional intelligence and empathy, escapism, substance abuse, manipulation and gaslighting, delusion and idealism, imagination versus reality. Many will receive clarity through dreams and happenstance situations like coincidental, quote-unquote, coincidental occurrences, intuitive downloads, and spiritual gifts, or other nuanced experiences that will validate, amplify, or reflect your internal experiences. So this is really important to temper your fears and to really face your fears and to learn about your fears so that is not amplified and you're unprepared. Resistance will cause you to be forced into situations where resistance is less and less achievable and denial is less and less accomplished. The harder you deflect and project, the more amplified the external rejection from others will be. The more you embrace, you will achieve more community and feel comfortable with embracing the journey and exploring new paths to one's dreams and true desires. This will be a very emotional journey for many of us, because you can really be connecting with your emotional body, or like doing somatic work and work on the nervous system can be really beneficial during this time too. Especially if there's been trauma related to the way one connects, or rather has not been able to connect to one's dreams, goals, or desires. It might require unpacking some childhood experiences that created blockages and restrictions that are actually keeping you from prosperity and unburdening you from those fears. Tune into what you want for you as an individual. Then figure out what's in the way of you having it. Some of us, many of us, it's all in our minds, it's all in our heads. Engage in brain happy foods and activities like mushrooms and cognitive skill building. For example, it's time to talk to the demons in your mind and figure out what they want, where they're coming from, and how you can work together. Also figure out what they're feeding on and figure out if it's coming from you. And if it's not coming from you, if it's coming from someone outside of you. It's a lot easier to get rid of the external demon feeder. But if it's coming from inside, that takes some deeper unpacking and figuring out how to equip yourself with the tools and support, the external support to get you through it is really important. And it'll take a lot of work. It will take a lot of work. It will take a lot of practice. It will take a lot of time. Those are all Saturn themes, but it is worth it. So it's time to unpack what the demons are working on, what they're feeding on, what they want, where they're coming from, and make friends with them. Use them. They will come in handy one day, but you just need to be in control. You got to use them. They can't use you. Where do you self-sabotage pleasure or happiness due to fear? That's also something you can ponder on, think about, journal on. Saturn will retrograde until November 16th. Saturn is the ruler of time, aging, maturing, and Pisces can represent what we believe, idealize, our daydreams, or the lies, again, that we've been taught are truths. The beliefs and experiences from choices made because of those beliefs will be called under review during Saturn retrograde. Especially people who like to lie, manipulate, and get over on people. If they've been doing it and they've been getting away with it and they believe that they can get away with it and they believe that that's okay, they've been taking advantage of good people. Saturn also rules karma. It's going to be a season of karma and retribution, especially for people who are called in to review their actions, their activities, and how they've done manipulative and abusive things. They don't want to cope with it. Justice is going to come from somewhere. We got this square from Jupiter. Jupiter's like, hold up. Jupiter wants justice. Listen, Jupiter's at 8 degrees. Saturn's retrograde. Saturn's going to go back. Things that people have done, people are going to learn about it. There's going to be people talking about it. Like, there's going to be a new reputation. Jupiter's gossip. And Jupiter's in the bound of Jupiter right now. And even after it gets to 11 degrees, it'll still be in the bound of Jupiter until it gets to 12 degrees. Then it'll be in the bound of Venus. Saturn will be at 12 degrees. Pisces. Jupiter will be at 19 degrees. Gemini. And Jupiter will be retrograde at that point. Interesting. We still got a whole sign house square between the two. So Saturn is there, Jupiter will be there. First house, fourth house. The karmic justice is coming. A lot of people are being called to reap and benefit from and experience karmic justice. Whether you're on the giving or receiving end of it is up to your choices and up to your intentions also. Have you been moving from a place of integrity? We're allowed to make mistakes, you know what I mean? But if you've been out here just knowingly doing wrong by people, that's a different type of thing. And that type of deception is Pisces. This is part of the lower spectrum of Pisces, because Pisces can be very beautiful and loving and giving and compromising also. But deception and lies is also a part of Pisces. Manipulation, abuse, unthinkable abuse can also be a part of Pisces.